Hi, everyone. Jen T with ARINGO, and today we are going through the application walkthrough. So I have gone through the Wharton application already because it isn't letting me save as I go. It's like making me fill out the entire application and the mandatory fields before I can move to the next page. So it's a little bit harder to do kind of piecemeal. So I would almost say or recommend, one, go through the application, every single tab that you can, before you get started with the application itself and sit down for it. But then I would allocate like a nice 2 to 3 hours, block that off to actually do the Wharton application so that you have time to manage it and make sure that you're giving it everything you need to before you actually kind of go to the next page and fill out the information. So I'm not going to cover the basics biography, biographical information, etc. You guys typically know how to do that. I will hit the highlights and maybe answer any specific questions you may have about specific sections. So this is just your biographical information, communications. I would recommend that you sign me up for program updates, because this is going to give you specific information about Wharton and the MBA and events. I know that because I've done this, have signed up and I get emails about when they're coming to Atlanta, where I'm from. So, it's always great to get those personal invites versus always having to check the website. So program information. So when you go into the site, you can select which program you want to be part of. The thing about applications is that they're pretty dynamic with MBA. So if you say that you want to do a dual degree program, then it's going to offer you different options for filling out later on. When I first did this, I actually selected that I wanted to also do the Louder program, which is an international program within Wharton. And it had added extra prompts and spaces. So just know that I'm going to do the basics today, but if you select something like the Louder program, it's going to add additional prompts later on in the application. So just be prepared for that. So you would select MBA, Fall 25, and be on your way. All right. So in application information, they're going to ask you, if you're going to be concurrently applying to any programs or not. And again, it's dynamic. It'll ask you which ones. And so you have the ability to choose if you're doing if you want to apply to multiple schools. So I'm going to say no. And then they'll ask you if you applied previously. I'm clicking yes in this so that you can see the prompt later on during the essay section. And then from there, which program do you want to apply to? They do have a wide variety. And then, when do you want to start? Or in which year would you have started the program? And then, you can put that in there. And then, what was your outcome? And this is for your previous application. So you hit next, and it will take you into your personal information. So this information isn't necessarily something that's going to be, it is not something that will be considered in your application for admission. It's considered for engaging you as a candidate, as well as for statistics later on. So they do have the very binary, again, male, female, and non-binary, but they have only 3 options here. But you can also add in your gender identity or sexual orientation. And this also just gives them a little bit more idea about who you are and, what you're sharing with the MBA community as a diverse candidate, right? Then you can also select your pronouns and then identity there. So one thing that's unique about Wharton, not every school does this. All of them will ask about military experience. The one thing that will be different is that they do ask if you are currently or previously part of the military. Yes. Was it the U.S. military? I selected no. And it gives you ability to put that you were in the military for a different country. So that's pretty awesome. Not all schools will do that. So it's great that Wharton values military service, whether it's in the US or out. And then beyond that, languages that you speak, etc. So here's a little fun tip, is that a lot of people want to put like a languages, like a bullet point on their resume, but you have the ability to put it in the application form. Anything you can put in the application form, I say saves room from your resume, so you can put in more qualitative information for them about who you are. So yeah, so you can add those languages here and you don't have to worry about it. Family information. In another session, somebody asked, like, do you have to include it? How does it influence things? And I think that there's another application where I read that, like from Darden, they were saying that this gives them ability to see anything that maybe demographically or any sort of disadvantage that you might have had, like this established low income threshold, or like your resilience of overcoming different things. All right, and so you'd fill this out. This is about your parents and then your partner. Again, it's all optional. You don't have to do it. If you do, then that's helpful. Is your spouse or spouse to be also applying to Wharton? A lot of people ask, like, if we're applying as a couple, does it help us? Does it hurt us? I would say that it's actually a little bit more helpful. I'm not going to say it'll get you the admit, but it does show a stronger investment in the program itself, that we've both done our research and know that Wharton would be the right spot for both of us. And that kind of reinforces the idea that you've done your research. You know that this is going to be good for you and the next steps in your life. They ask if you have children. And these questions are helpful for the school to be able to reach out to you specifically and say, oh, do you want to talk to somebody from our Wharton families group? Or, here, do you want to chat with somebody who maybe has children? This is, a great opportunity to do that. And then the next thing, do you have family or members that are a graduate of the Wharton School? And so this gives you an opportunity to, again, show this affiliation to the school, and kind of share that. If you're a legacy, you can kind of share that there as well. And then community honors and recognition. So be cognizant of what this is asking. List any awards, recognitions, honors, and fellowships that you have received in your collegiate or broader personal community. So this is not for your professional life, but this is for personal and college. And you can definitely put these things here in the form versus having to share them in your resume and take up valuable space. And then they ask about conduct, and you're good to go there. Okay, so the next part is going to be extracurricular activities. The cool part is that they allow you to add up to 10 different involvements, which is amazing. So again, when we're considering our resume, that's our marketing tool, we want to feature very specific things on the resume that are going to be the bigger highlight of your experience. And some of those smaller things can be put here in the application form. So like if you were part of like a club or activity, or orientation leader or something like that during your undergrad, but it's not necessarily super relevant to your work experience, then you can put it here. It's so amazing. So I would definitely use and maximize this space. And then, yeah, I would do as much as you can. Again, this is another opportunity for the school to feel like they're going to have an ability to connect with you. And so sharing that is definitely helpful. All right, so moving on to work experience. So again, you're going to be filling out this document or form to tell them a bit more about all the employers that you've had. My biggest caveat to work experience is to make sure to be as accurate as you possibly can when completing like what who your employer was, the dates that you're employed, salary, etc. They're not going to be contacting them necessarily for a reference, but they do fact check when they do a background check later on when you're admitted to the program. So getting that information correct up front prevents them from having to ask you additional questions later on when you are admitted, and any discrepancies. So that's my caveat to this. So they start this off with asking you about the number of years of full-time work experience. And this means from the time that you graduated from your undergrad, how many years of work experience have you had. So it doesn't count if you worked during undergrad. I know that there's a lot of countries where maybe you work like post-military service, you go into college, and then maybe it's traditionally normal for you to work, the last couple of years in a professional setting, like an actual professional role. You can include that on your resume, but as far as years of full-time work experience, you'll include from graduation on. And then they want to ask you about your interest after MBA. So you want to talk about what that is here and make sure that that matches later on when we put in our short-term, long-term goals and concentrations and that kind of thing as well. So you can fill this out from the drop-down menu. And then from there, we're going to fill in your employer information, etc. So some people ask, like, does it matter if I didn't make millions of dollars or thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars? That's not actually the reference point that they're using this for. They're using this for market research and for promoting what your pre-salary was of what generically pre-salaries were before the MBA and post MBA, what your salary was. So we helped candidates who graduated from Wharton increase their salary by $50,000, etc. So that's what that is for. It's not necessarily a reference point for them as to, how much money you're making and how much value you can bring to the program. So you'll put in all this information. It made me fill that out before I could move on to the next place. So next, we're going to talk about professional awards, honors, and recognition. So this is a great opportunity for you to be able to, show those, spot awards, promotions, or I guess promotions might not be 100% the right thing, but, anything that you have that's an accolade from your professional side, you can put it here again instead of in your resume, unless it feels like it's a super important award that you won. Then resume might be the right place. So they want you to upload your resume here. I typically recommend that you use a PDF format when you're uploading it. And the reason is because it preserves the formatting that you've worked so hard to get and achieve. And sometimes when you upload a Word document, it will get a little scrambled or won't interpret it the right way. And you know that it will with a PDF. And then they do ask, like, if you have additional employment listings, to do that actually in a Word document. So a little bit different advice there, do what they say for that specific thing if you really need to add additional employment listings. All right. And then you can also include your certifications. Again, if you have like a CPA, chartered accountant, CFA, things like that, then I would make sure that you include it in your name title of your resume. So Jen Turtschanow, CPA or CA or CFA, whatever it might be, put it there so you can kind of save some space. And then again, you could put it here in the actual application itself. Okay, so next we're going to move to the academic side of things. I know I kind of previewed this page for you. I know, big teaser. So they want to know about your high school, secondary, or prep school. So for my Indian candidates who always want to put it on their resume, you can put it here and be happy that they can see how you did in 10th and 12th and be able to see your awards and recognition, if you're a class topper, et cetera. That's a great place to get to actually use it versus having to, move it off the resume. And then they want the undergraduate. So obviously you can search for your school here. And if it's not there, they do have an opportunity for you to add it later on. Then we'll move on to GPA. So they are going to be asking you for your GPA recorded by the school. So each MBA application is a little bit different, but for Wharton, they're wanting what your recorded GPA was or what it will be whenever they look at your official transcript. So you can use that here. So if it wasn't a 4.0, that's totally fine. And then they can put in what kind of scale it was, other or no GPA. I don't think other, okay, yeah. So then you can use, it was a 10-point scale, which makes my 4.0 so sad. So then you can do that there and upload your unofficial transcripts. Okay, so other post-secondary degrees. So if you graduated, did your master's, anything like that, you can upload that here. And then it also, they do want transcripts from every school that you did attend. So if you transferred from one school to the next, then you'll also include that institution as well. Additional college information, please upload any additional educational history you may have here. And so I know that that was a question earlier, and I didn't see this question or this prompt here, but this is an opportunity for you to upload, a list of additional certifications that you've received from LinkedIn, Coursera, whatever it is. Here you go. You have the ability to add it. Now, at the very bottom, they want to know what your intended major is at Wharton. So this is your time when you can choose many of the different options. There's 2 tracks that are a little bit separate from the traditional MBA. One is going to be the Wharton Louder program, which is a completely separate application that you'll have to complete. The other is a healthcare management major, which doesn't necessarily have a separate application, but it does have an additional interview if you move to that phase. And I know that some folks had mentioned or asked about it earlier. So I'll double check by adding that there if anything changes. Okay, so recommendations. So they're going to tell you exactly who they want you to put as your recommender and what they kind of need to answer. You can also find that on their website. So when you're selecting your recommender, you want to find somebody who can talk to your work experience, your leadership, your growth, like somebody who's giving you some critical or constructive feedback, that type of relationship. So it doesn't have to be the CEO of the company. It can be, just your direct supervisor, manager. Again, like title is not as important as the quality of the actual recommendation and what they have to share about you. So the other caveat to this is that they ask you if you want to waive your right to examine this letter of recommendation. And I typically say yes, because if you say no, it's going to tell the recommender that you can review the letter of recommendation later, which means that you're going to come back and point the finger at them if you don't get admitted. And you don't want anybody to have that pressure of like, I can't authentically say what I wanted to say, or they're afraid I'm going to say something I'm not supposed to. You don't want to put any of those weird thoughts in their mind. So I typically recommend for our clients to waive the right to examine the LOR. That's my 2 cents. And then, you'll do your second recommender. So this is another moment that I was talking about. It wouldn't let me move on to the next page if I hadn't put in the contact information and sent the recommendations or the request for recommendation to my recommenders. So again, I don't know if that's a glitch with the program for me specifically, but just know that sometimes it won't let you move past this until you've actually sent your recommenders the request. And sometimes you're not ready for that. So make sure that you've talked to your recommenders before you send it, and make sure that they were, up to date on what's happening, that you're going to be asking for it. You're not catching them off guard. And then, offer any assistance, take them to coffee so that they can get to know more about you before they submit their letter of recommendation. All right, so then we'll move into essays. Okay, so again, we're not going to dive into the specific essays here. We're going to talk more about the actual technical side of it. So when we look at the prompt, they're going to give you the word requirement and a text box. So each school does this differently. Some of them want you to upload individual documents. Some of them want you to upload one document with each essay. Some of them want you to enter into a text box. So, I would go ahead and write this prompt in Word, Google, any sort of outside tool that's going to allow you to proofread, edit, grammar check, etc. Just don't expect Grammarly to help you with writing this and making sure that it's proofed. Don't do that. Write it in another program, copy and paste it into the text box so that you make sure you feel confident about what you're submitting here in this text box. And then these are going to limit you specifically to that word count. And that might actually be why they've decided to do a text box versus a Word document, because they can put a constraint on you that you cannot go beyond. So again, earlier in the application, I did click that I was a reapplicant. And so here is the prompt is asking you essentially what's changed between your application this year and last year. And so you want to talk about anything that, you have done to improve your candidacy, any additional coursework, etc., that you've done, so that they can see you've had some growth and reflection. Sometimes that means that you've changed career trajectory or decisions. That's what you want to put in here. Again, we can dive into that on August 10th when we do our essay walkthrough. And then additional information. So this is optional, it's not required, and it is not an additional essay. This is a moment for you to tell the committee or explain to the committee anything that feels like, oh man, I really wish I could just say oh, there was a work gap because of X, Y, and Z. This is your opportunity to do that. And again, it doesn't have to be like a full-on essay. It can literally start with, I'd like to share 3 things with the admissions committee about my application. One, the number 1 dot, and write it out, that there's a work gap from this date to this date because of layoffs or because of COVID, or, when I graduated, it was the middle of COVID. Anything that happens there, you can kind of include that. Number 2, you can say, you may recognize, or the committee will see that my GPA during my first year of college was lower as I was getting adjusted to the new circumstances, new country, whatever it might be. And then I had an upward trajectory of my GPA as I continued and went on in my engineering coursework, etc. So, anything that you feel like you need to explain. Also, like if your recommender is not your primary boss, you can say, you'll notice that I'm not using my current boss as a recommender, as it may jeopardize my employment. All right, so that's essays. So test information, you'll put this into, you'll use your test score in here, put that in there. And then the other thing is that they may ask you how many times you took this exam. You want to answer truthfully, because they can check the system. GMAT has an ability for them to log in and see how many times, so just be truthful. English test, this is all your information that you need to do. So no questions on that page. The last thing that I wanted to make sure that we talked about was the fact that they will, they do have the ability, or they're telling you that they have AI tools that can detect if you've used AI to write your application, and that you are agreeing that you wrote your application and you didn't use AI. And so you'll sign that integrity, code of ethics, etc., before you submit your application. And that is all about the application itself. Ready for your questions, Ange. Perfect.
Okay, so Abhyarta is asking, I have 8 to 10 LinkedIn certificates. Where can I show them to get the right impact on the profile?
Yes. So, so when we go back to, I think it's going to be in your academic section that you're going to be able to add that non-degree. I believe that there might be something, other post-secondary degrees. And sorry, because we're in the education section now, or that's where I'm going next. They don't actually have the ability to do that. Sorry, I know maybe I'm getting you dizzy. Hopefully not. Let's see. There may not be a space specifically for you to add that. If you don't have too many, or you're not exceeding the 2,000 character limit for the professional awards, honors, and recognitions, then I actually think you can put them there. This could also be one of those questions whenever you attend a Wharton session with the Wharton Admissions Committee. You can also ask them as well, where's the best place to put it.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to explain career gaps between graduation and employment?
Yes. So we'll talk about that in the optional essay portion as well. But we're coming upon a time when a lot of people graduated during COVID that are applying for MBAs now. So know that the admissions committees are right there beside you, having to do virtual classes, recruiting and working with deferrals and everything. So they definitely have kind of an understanding of what happened during COVID and a bigger understanding and respect for career gaps or layoffs, etc. So if it's over, I believe their general rule is 4 months, then you definitely want to explain it. But I say that if you have any sort of gap, then you try to explain it so that there's no assumptions about what happened.
For someone that has been in the National Guard reserves, do you suggest also adding into their work experience aside from the military section?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's a large part of your background, then absolutely.
Cute. Can family business be taken as work experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So that just depends a couple of things. So family business absolutely counts and is super valuable to MBA programs. They love it. But if you did it while you were, still an undergrad and, it's part of your span of work, then you can't count it as, full-time work, but you can add it to your resume and or the optional essay or incorporate it in your essays as well. So you can tell them in so many different ways about your family business experience.
Seth is asking, if you choose the HCM major for Wharton, are you evaluated differently?
So first of all, if you choose the HCM major for Wharton, talk to June Kinney, schedule a time with her, attend any of the events that she's part of, because she's kind of the gatekeeper for HCM. Now, whether applying to, and then this applies to all schools that have these dual majors and options, is that it doesn't necessarily make you or give you better chances of being admitted. But what it does is give you the ability to provide a better correlation as to why that program is right for you. That that with the Wharton MBA plus the HCM and those resources that are combined make this a special ecosystem that is going to especially help you excel and how. So technically, it doesn't boost your chances, but it should give you the ability to reaffirm even more than other candidates why it's the right choice for you.
Thank you. Priya is asking, I have cleared all 3 levels of CFA, but have not taken the charter since it would not help me in my current role. Should I apply for the charter if it helps in the Wharton application?
One would be if it's only the application and like the process, sure, get it done, put it on your resume. It'll help you if you want to continue in the financial world. Absolutely. If it requires you to take an exam that you haven't taken yet, then don't worry about it. It's not going to enhance your candidacy that much. Focus on the GMAT GRE and on writing your application instead, and you can complete the CFA later when you need to.
Does an award or recognition for a pro bono project you completed count towards the professional honor or awards?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if it's like professional and it's relying on your professional skills, I would put them in the professional section. Like if it's under, like if your firm offers specific pro bono opportunities or requires it, whatever, then you can put it underneath the professional. If it's something completely different and a different side of who you are, then maybe put it in the community section. It's really up to you. Either way, getting it into the application form is the important part. So you can choose which place does it better fit.
We have a question for deferred admissions. Could you tell us what's essential for MOLIS advanced access for deferred admissions candidates?
Yeah, and I could talk about this all day, but for deferred MBA admissions, they don't have much work experience to base things off of. So make sure that you're highlighting your leadership experience, your internships, and your accomplishments. I would also, want to show your academic prowess and readiness for the program. So they do love candidates that are coming from a non-business background for the deferred MBA program. So that's something you want to boost. If you're from outside of that, Beyond that, they're looking at your leadership potential and your career goals. It does help if you're not like going into like entrepreneurship or something like that, that you do have a job secured post MBA or post graduation from your undergrad degree, to just give them a better idea of where you're heading in between then and starting the program.
Okay, thank you. And one last rapid fire question. We have this. What kind of experiences should an applicant who is already a student at Penn carry law with less experience highlight? And we're
Yeah,
we're out of time. Yep.
any sort of correlation or transferable skills to the business world. That's it,
Okay.
right? Like, how does that really impact you, or what can you show that you can bring over to the business program and their classroom?
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you, Jen, for showing out. This was a great session. If hopefully we answered as many questions as we could. Again, thank you so much for everyone, and Jen, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, guys. See you later.